Hi everyone, I'm Ania Sade, and thanks for coming to my YouTube channel. This is Ania Sade React, where I react and give my honest opinions about the latest TV series and movies. So I'm so excited to do this. I'm a big movie person and I love certain TV series, especially certain ones that are coming up. Yeah, so you definitely want to subscribe and click that bell to be notified every time I upload a new video because we're gonna have some fun. All right, so the first video I wanted to do was, of course, on Loki. So Loki, of course, is the god of mischief, right? He is Thor's brother. He, of course, became, one of our anti-hero individuals. So if you're more like myself, kind of wanted to know more of his story and felt like he should have some airtime, more airtime than just being Thor's brother. So I was so excited when they announced that they wanted to do Loki. We finally get our first episode, which is called Glorious Purpose. And if you see my eyes going here, it's just because I have certain notes and I want to make sure I stay on topic. So okay, so let's go into Glorious Purpose. We are now being pinpointed from the point of Avengers Endgame because that's the last time we saw Loki. Loki did die in the Infinity War Avengers movie, which was the one before Endgame. However, we saw Loki again when Tony Stark, Captain America, and Ant-Man went back to the timeline of New York City 2012. And as we remember, they went back because they had to retrieve the Tesseract. So Tesseract is one of the Infinity Stones. So that was why it was important to go to 2012 New York's timeline of 2012 pinpoint New York City. It was also really important to go there because it was another Infinity Stone that they could retrieve while they was there as well. So why not go there? However, what we're watching or going into when we go into A Glorious Purpose is a recap in a recap, because it was a recap that we saw or that they experienced in Endgame, but then we had to go back into the recap. So now go into Glorious Purpose. Fun, right? Fun. The Tony Stark of today is all disguised, gets the suitcase and heads on his way. Well, in that moment, as you remember, Hulk was coming down the stairs and Hulk was pissed. Take the stairs, boom, I take the stairs. And he actually knocks Tony Stark down because they end up colliding right in there. Well, the suitcase ends up flying in the sky, hitting the ground, and the Tesseract is now out of the suitcase. And where does it land? It lands right in front of Loki, who touches the Tesseract and transports out of there. And then that's how we get into the Loki series. But that was just the introduction of actually going into the now moment after the fact of the Endgame. But it allowed us to remember that that was important to remember, because I thought it would be important. Because I'm like, so what happened to Loki? Like, so that because they went to a different timeline, as you may remember, to get the Tesseract, since the Tesseract was now no longer there in that timeline. But it was like, but what happened to Loki? So now we know. He ended up transporting, using the Tesseract, to a different timeline. Wasn't really sure what timeline. Maybe we'll find that out later as the TV series go on. And then all of a sudden, this clear like door, if you will, without a knob or anything. Basically something that looks like you can transport through or whatever, comes out of nowhere, and some guys that are all like uniformed up with guns or something gun-like come out of it. Are looking like, well, you're under arrest for messing with the sacred timeline. Looking at Loki. And all Loki really wants is that Tesseract, because he actually ended up letting it go when he got to that specific timeline. So, but he's still like handcuffed, I believe, at this time. So it is just a whole thing. And he's just trying to get that. They're telling him, come with them willingly or be consequences. Of course, he's, God of mischief. He's a god. What are you going to What are you doing? He's a god. He controls you. So he, goes a little further and said, you know what? I don't care what you're talking about. I'm going to get this Tesseract. The lady warned him to come willingly. So what she does is she has like this stick thing that actually hits his cheek, and at the moment that it hits the cheek, he's like going very like slow motion, and she's telling him, you are going in 1/16 of a speed, but you can feel everything in real time. And at that very moment, she's putting some like collar thing on his neck, which we later find out is able to stop him from doing his powers. Now, we're in this next scene where they're going through the certain protocol of what happens when you mess with the sacred timeline. So the individual, one of the individuals from the TVA, we'll just call him that, but it's just short for Time Variance Authority. So the TVA individual, the main leader, which could be called a hunter, she is taking him to go through the protocol of being arrested. And they retrieve the Tesseract, so he loses the Tesseract again. But then he ends up being in this area, almost like, to me, reminds you of the BMV. Where it's like, okay, take a ticket. And he's looking like, why do I need to get a ticket for? It's only me and an individual before me. What do we need a ticket? So he's trying to get this ticket. He eventually gets a ticket, and the ticket is important because it's going to let him know when his time is up to go see the judge to actually hear about his charges. Before that, they like to show you this animation, because all of a sudden you hear this female talking. But right before the female talks, he is telling the guards or security guards, I am not supposed to be here. It's a mistake. You basically. So the female that came out of nowhere, that was talking like almost over an intercom, saying, you're probably thinking that you shouldn't be here. It's a mistake, pretty much. It was hilarious that she like from word said what he said. And then we see this animation comes up where this like watch looking thing figure starts talking and saying basically why he was there. He messed with the sacred timeline. So when he touched that Tesseract, he actually messed with the timeline of his life. He was supposed to go through all those things that we end up seeing him doing with the Avengers movies as well as the Thor movies. So the fact that he is no longer a part of that timeline, which would lead to that, now interrupts things. She's basically telling him, or telling the individuals that there, because she's not deliberately just talking to him. She's just talking to anyone that was there that was arrested for messing with the sacred timeline. She's basically stating why the TVA even exists. And they exist because years ago, probably centuries, it was individuals that will fight. So it was a time war. They would fight against each other's timeline and ended up being like a big bang situation. So they didn't want that to happen again. So the timekeepers that controls the time actually help and come in when they see a possible nexus, if you will, which is just another way of saying that if there's a disturbance. So if you're like late for work, or you're trying to do an uproar, of something that will cause a big shift in time, they are going to stop you. The TVA Minutemen are going to come in and they're going to stop you, and they are going to reset the time, because if something happens that will change the time, it could be another war. So they created what now we realize is called the sacred timeline. So now it's no longer just different timelines, it's just the sacred timeline. So they can control it by using the TVA individuals and Minutemen to go and fix and make that timeline stay the same. So when something like that happens, a possible nexus, they will get the individual or individuals that have started that, and then reset it with that object that I mentioned for earlier. He goes in front of the judge. The judge asks, so how do you plead? He says, I'm a god, I don't plead. It was hilarious. But so he goes in, and the lady judges just keeps saying, oh, how do you plead? Are you guilty or you're not guilty? Blah, blah, blah. So this is happening. But it also cuts into another scene in between this hearing. We see where Mobius is his name. He is at this scene where there's individuals on the ground and they look dead. We find out that those were also Minutemen, because he's actually part of the TVA crew as well, and he had many men with them. So they came on the scene to figure out what just happened. The timeline wasn't reset, and the men are dead. But they have seen this before, and so they thinking they have an idea who it is. As that is going on, the little clear looking door came out of nowhere, and now we're seeing that this person just came through, basically tell Mobius, okay, hey, you probably want to see this. And it was just some like they had like this digital tablet looking thing with Loki being just arrested or whatever, and now in a court hearing. So then we come back to the scene where the judge is like, okay, look, this is this and that, blah blah blah. Mobius sneaks in, into the court hearing to listen. Finally, judge said, well, okay, you're guilty of these charges, blah, blah, blah. You are now going to be reset. So I guess when you're arrested, you will also get reset. Loki was like, I don't want to be reset. Do you know what I'm capable of? So that's when Mobius comes up and he's like, okay, well, I know how he's capable of. The judge says, come here. Looks like they have some history, the judge and Mobius. We'll find out. So that happens. The judge actually says, okay, we're not going to reset him. You better not let this basically go awry. And I thought that was interesting that she didn't really want to do it right off, but it wasn't a lot of convincing. We're like, what is going on that we are not understanding? Seeing some memories, we were seeing things that Loki remembers. Then we start seeing, because Mobius wanted to show him this, of timelines that hasn't happened to that Loki yet. So Loki is now experiencing what happened when he finally got back to Asgard. And of course, like again, I said, he ain't experienced that yet. The other one did, that was living out the timeline, but he hasn't. So he doesn't understand why Mobius is now showing him his mother's death, and that he actually has some cause to it because of him telling that monster to go to a different direction. That ended up leading to where his mother was, and ends up leading to him, to the monster killing his mother. He then sees even when Odin dies, and all because of him, by his hand of him stripping his power and him getting older, and then him being in a different place, and all the things with that. So he's seeing all this craziness. He even sees his own death by Thanos, and he's just appalled and shocked and confused. And Mobius is seeing like his tactic here is just to get him to understand, what do you want to do with your life, and do you really want to rule? Because it just seems like every time you rule, you always lose. But he goes on to say, I really don't care about trying to rule people. It's the illusion, basically, of being the god of mischief, but it's not really something I want to do and whatnot. So he goes in to say, why, basically, you need me for something. Mobius says, yes. He says, yeah, this is a fugitive that's messing with time, that's actually killing and hurting our Minutemen. And the person is you. Oh my God. So the person we're hunting is you? Like, that's crazy. So next it cuts to a scene that's Oklahoma in 1858. So that is now another area where some Minutemen came to, just to see what this possible nexus is, because they see there was disturbance there with the timeline. And they see a figure there. They're trying to get close to the figure, but all of a sudden they're like in this like hay or grass type area, and it just sets on fire and kills them pretty much. And you see this figure just coming closer and closer to the camera, but you still don't know what that figure is, right? And then all of a sudden it cuts off. It goes to the credits. So it was really interesting. I guess we'll find out what's going on, because that really could mean, it means something of why he would interrupt the hearing, why he even wanted to care about the memories and show it to Loki, and probably, did this happen before? all of this and whatnot. So, and if so, maybe they can rectify the situation beforehand. So maybe they're doing something different with this specific sacred timeline than maybe they did before. But we are going to find out. Yeah, I'm excited. But definitely subscribe so you can see my thoughts on episode 2. And I'm also, like I said, going to be doing movie reviews too and my opinions on that. So I'll be looking forward to the next video, which should be a movie. And then we'll continue us on with the Loki TV series as well. But let me know in the comment box as well if you want me to do a review or opinion on a specific movie or TV series. And that may be the next thing I will do a review on. So thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.